Hello, beautiful artists. So today I have been asked by several of you. I'm just going to be practicing some basic leaf shapes. I had a few of you say that you have like one leaf shape that you go to. So I'm just going to show you a few easy ones. And today my supplies are going to be my 8 Velvet Touch Princeton. That's the 8 round. I'm also, just because I don't want to have to change out my brush to go to different colors, I'm also going to use my 8 flat shader just for some stems. And you can also use, I've suggested these beginner Degato brushes. You can absolutely use those as well. You get a set of 10 rounds and they're like $10. Such a great beginner set to start with if you don't want to invest in those Princetons yet. But I am going to be using my Velvet Touch today. I'm using my Artisto pad, such a great pad, especially for beginners to, this is their old cover, by the way. They've got a beautiful bright purple cover, because I can just kind of go back and look back on different things I've done. So if you're a beginner, this is a great, this is that Petals brush, by the way, the practice I did. You can go back and look and reference and date these books and use them to see your progression. You can also tear them out if you really want to, but if they've got great texture, do really well with wet on wet painting. So I'm going to be using that. I will also be using my MeiLang palette, which you know I use most of the time. I can't afford to paint on Winsor Newton every day for as much painting as I'm doing. So I'm using these. They also have that wonderful 36 set. This is the bigger set with the metallics, but these paints are so gorgeous and rich and creamy. I love them. So I'm going to be using those today. They're my go-to for my daily painting. And make sure you've got your wash and your rinse water with watercolors, because they're so translucent. You want to make sure you're really getting a good wash and rinse on those. So let's go ahead and get started. For most of you, I think the basic, for me anyways, when I was learning, the basic leaf I would do was kind of like, just your basic average leaf, which is totally fine. I'm going to show you a few more. So that one I just showed you is made up of a C stroke. A C stroke is just point, press, open up your brush, the belly of the brush, and curve it around and keep moving, bring it up to a point. Now I have a lot of you ask this too, if you get kind of that blotch, just move it around like that. That's all you have to do. So we're going to create a leaf out of that. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got my left side C stroke. Let's do the right side. Point, open up the belly, press, and come around. Again, if you have that blotch and you want to get rid of that, go ahead. Now I'm going to just connect, because one of the things I love about watercolors, of course, is how they bleed and flow together. So I'm just going to use my little flat shader and create a little stem. All right. Now, so that's one kind of basic leaf shape. Here's another one with another C shape. So point, press. I'm bringing my paintbrush more upright, pressing in, opening up that belly, except this time I'm going to make it a little bit longer. So point, press, make it a little bit longer, grab some more paint, do the other side, point, press, and I'm just going to bring this right side into about there, and I'm also leaving white space in the middle. So practice that one. That one may take a little bit of practice. So point, press, open up the belly, point, press, leave the white space, and come in before you get to the bottom. And then if you want, you can go ahead and spread that paint around, and then we'll add our little stem. Okay? If you wanted, you could also go in there with maybe a little bit of blue, just while it's wet. Always kind of pretty, or yellow, whatever color you really want. So those are kind of our C strokes. Now here's one more actual C stroke that's would be more like a, I see it as more like a rose bush maybe leaf, and it's just a fat C, kind of like this. So point, widen up that belly, Really open it up. Spread the paint around. And then let's do the other side. Point, press, and really make a nice wide leaf here. Use that brown, just touch in. So there's that wide leaf. Now what I'm going to do with that is for a rose, my roses have these little kind of thorny pieces coming out. So I'm just using very thin little lines and creating some kind of jagged little edges there. All right, so there's another type of leaf you could do for maybe your roses. Now let's do just a C stroke, but we're really only using one side. So point, press, turning my brush more up and down, and really elongate that out. That's a perfect leaf there too. Point, do it again. You could absolutely just use that kind of leaf. Let's do that one more time. Let me pick up a little bit more paint here. Oh, well, we'll turn that into something. Point, press. So you could definitely do a one-sided leaf, and then if you even wanted to, maybe add in a little blue to that, make it a little interesting. And there you go. Here's our stem. Okay, so the next leaf I want to share with you is another really easy one. And this could be also used as like a filler. I'm going to try and kind of save this. So let's see if we can use that. I'm going to start, and these are just dabs. So I've got my wrist resting here, and I'm just using the tip and maybe the middle of my brush. So point, press, like this. So I'm kind of trying to use that one. It's a little fatter than the rest. And we're doing something like that. Let's pick up a tiny bit of that brown and go through the middle. So I'm touching in while it's wet. And there you go. There's another simple little leaf. And that could be like a cluster. You could add that in between your flowers, is perfectly fine. And then let's see, let's do another one. This one could also be used as a filler. So I'm just going to do some small strokes. Like this, almost kind of fern-like. And then let's go in and create that little line down the center and connect these. So this one would be really pretty with maybe some berries around it or something like that. This one would be really good with berries around it. You could also touch into any of these, the bottom, with some blue. But I really like going into them with that brown. I think that's really pretty. Okay, so let's see, what's another one? We could do some really long, flowy grass type leaves. So something like this. You might use this for those orchids, for tulips, which would be a little bit fatter. But here's some little grassy ones. Point, press, and just let them trail off. Point, press, very willowy, point, press, maybe swoop around, point, press. So these, like I said, I use these a lot of times for my tulips and things. If you want to do a fat tulip leaf, you could certainly add the other side to it, point, press, because tulip leaves are very long, but a lot of times they're thicker, something like that. And then let's do a eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is a really fun one, and I love the colors in eucalyptus because you can add some blue. So let's just create kind of a blue green. Now the other thing I really always like doing is mixing my colors on my pad of paper. So this one I'm going to use kind of some dabbing. So point, press, like that, point, press. Now some of the eucalyptus leaves you can kind of make bigger. Let's get a little bit of blue on there. And they really, that one I'm using the tip of my brush and point, press, point, press. So there's some little eucalyptus leaves. Now let's go in there and just, excuse me, add our stem going down the middle. Actually, let's go this way. There we go. And then to bring some more interest, I think one of the big things I do that we don't realize we're doing, and I certainly did in the beginning, is we make, so we have a plant, a flower or something, and we make all of the leaves the exact same size and the exact same color. So this is where, you know, if you have, let me grab another piece of paper here. If you have a flower, we'll just use this one for instance, and I give it a stem here. We want to make all the leaves different shapes, different sizes, different directions. So you might have one coming out here like this, point, press, point, press. So there's one leaf, and that's a light value. Then you might want another one coming out here going a different direction. So I'm going to bring this one straight up, press, and it's a darker value. And then we may have another one that's maybe smaller, point, press, point, press. So you want to create that interest with values, with directions your leaves are facing, size. What I see a lot is in beginners, they will have their flower here, and then this is what their leaves will look like. Which actually, I mean, it's not bad at all, but they're all the exact same color, they're the exact same size, and if you could go in and make some smaller ones, let's just do that here. So I'll use a little darker value, meaning I just have a little bit more paint in there. And let's just darken in a few of these, and you can see the before and the after. So this would be the before, which is quite fine. Point, press, point, press. So I've got a darker one, and then let's just add in maybe some small ones here. Point, press, point, press for a little small one. Maybe we've got one coming out sideways, point, press, point, press. So now you're adding in some real fun interest. That one was wet, oops. So there we go. Let's see. Let's do one more dark one, like that. And so those are different values. Now let's do a really light one. See if I can get that value light. And we'll just put it kind of in the background. Point, press. So look how interesting that is. Point, press. Or maybe that one's a little bit darker and goes over this one. So look at how much more interesting that is when you vary not only the values, meaning the darkness and lightness of the color, and you change directions the leaves are going so they're not all looking identical, and you also change the size. So you've got some shorter, some longer, maybe some that have the opening on the inside, little tiny ones. So I hope those helped. This should give you a pretty good variety of some leaves to work with, but I really think even if you stuck to just this leaf shape, which is the most common I see, even if you just tried adding in some darker values, lighter values, and making them a little bit bigger and smaller, I think that would even be a huge change in your paintings. So maybe go back in some older paintings like I did here and just add in some and see what that does. Point press. See how it changes up your painting. Here's one. I'm going to make this one a different direction. Point press. Now that one was really dry. Point press. So look at that interest. Point press. And changing that size. Point press. It just creates this depth. Your eye is moving around. It's not seeing the exact same thing over and over. So I hope that helped for you all. I can't wait to hear what you think about that little tip. And as always, have fun. I will go ahead and share my links for these brushes. Beginners, these Degatos are absolutely wonderful. If you don't want to make that jump to the Princetons yet, you get 10. I've been using these for a while. I love them. And again, these little Artisto beginner pads are great. They're not 100% cotton, but as you can see, they have a beautiful texture. And then the MeiLang paints, which are fantastic. I'm using them daily, and I have tried out a lot. So there you go. Happy painting, friends, and I will talk to you soon.